everybody. So this is day 2 of my 30 days of lives, and tonight we're going to be talking about how I went from a call girl to a coach. So how does a straight A student who is a tomboy, definitely more comfortable at the time dressing like this, t-shirts and jeans all the time and sneakers. How does that girl, that straight A student and tomboy, wind up in the sex industry? How does she not wind up dead or in prison? And how in the world does she beat the odds, leave the sex industry with a clean bill of health, and become a coach? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. That's what I'm going to be telling you my story. So it's kind of funny because I haven't had like my hooker nails in a really long time, but I love them. The only thing I don't like about them is that I can't play guitar very well. That's frustrating. But I used to have nails like this all that time. I used to spend like $100 a week on my nails. Okay, so I'm Heather Wildsmith. For any of you who don't know me, I'm a sales coach. I'm big on integrity in sales and marketing. I am really becoming obsessed and super passionate about helping people discover their kind of hidden ROI, especially people who aren't in money niches. So that's who I am in a nutshell. And this is who I used to be and how I got here. So growing up, I was very much a tomboy, and there were nobody other than really boys to play with in my neighborhood. And so, I played in the dirt. I'm Southern, as you can hear. So we ran around in the woods. We played in the mud. We played in the creek. We had dirt clod fights. If you know what dirt clods are, you might be a Southerner, or have been exposed, God help you, to Southerners. And so I was really just like this, wild thing, and just very tomboyish, and love to be dirty and run around. And I was also really, really smart. I was very, very good at school. As a matter of fact, at that point in my life, I had way more book smarts than I had like common sense. I was very, very gullible, which caused problems later. But yeah, so I went to school, and I was the kid that asked for extra homework. I loved to learn, and even at a young age, like I loved to write. Like the kindergarten teacher would try to get me to go play with like blocks or play house with people, and I was like, fuck that, I want to write, and I would sit and I would write and I would draw. And so but I really enjoyed learning. I didn't really like school so much, but I liked learning, and I liked being recognized for my smarts. I really didn't feel like I was pretty. And so it was kind of like being smart was what I got, how I could get noticed, how I could get approval, from people. So my grades are really important. And around age 11, I was, looking around at my family, who, God love them, are doing, the best that they can, and my extended family, and the community we live in, and the churches that we go to, and I'm like, I don't fucking fit in here. Like, I'm going to get stoned to death if they ever find out who I really am, because I knew from a very young age that I was not straight. I was actually attracted to women first, and then later learned to appreciate men, and now I love men. But being raised in this small southern town, it was very rural. The area isn't very rural anymore, but it's about an hour north of Atlanta. And it was very, very rural and small-minded at the time. And I knew that I didn't belong there for a lot of reasons. Like, just a lot of things just didn't make sense to me, and even as a kid, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, so when I was 11, I decided that I had to get the fuck out of this town, that it was imperative to my survival to get the fuck out of this town. And so I knew, because my family was all in education, that I would be guaranteed a scholarship if I was valedictorian of my high school class. So I decided that I was going to make straight A's, and I was going to be valedictorian of my high school class. Now, at 11, I was in like 5th grade. So it was a very, very long-term goal. So I, made sure school was pretty easy for me at that point, but, I was very conscientious about doing my homework and studying for tests, and, I always made honor roll and, all of that stuff. Now, when I was 12, the movie Pretty Woman came out. And I don't know why my parents let me see this movie. Um, but I saw it. I saw it in the theaters. I think I was around 12. And I was so fascinated with this life. You know, it was a big city. Not only did we not live in any kind of city, we didn't go into the city. So cities fascinated me. And it just looked like this life of adventure and freedom and just wildness, you know. And I was like, oh my God, that looks fun. And at the point in the movie where Vivian tells, oh God, what's his name? Anyway, Richard Gere's character, when she tells them like I'm gonna leave, you know, because I really want the fairy tale, and he was saying, you know, well, I'll put you up in a nice condo, and you know, you can keep all the clothes and everything. I was like, oh my God, like keep the clothes and take the condo and like get better clients. So I'm pretty sure I was a sex worker like in a past life, because no 12-year-old from the country, you know, 12-year-old country bumpkin probably thinks like that, right? Okay, so I was really fascinated by it. I was really fascinated by sex work, but because I was really smart, I was like, I can't go do that because I'm smart, and smart girls don't do that. And the other part was, you know, I didn't think I was pretty, so I was like, I'm not pretty enough, you know, to go be a hooker. So So flash forward a few years later, I was salutatorian in my high school class, and I went to school. I went to college on 2 academic scholarships. And I love learning, but I hate institutionalized learning. I fucking hate it. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then there was a lot of chaos like that happened in my life. My parents got divorced, and like some of my friends started having some major problems. I mean, just a lot of stuff. It's like my life just imploded, right? And so by the second year of college, I actually, in the first couple of weeks, I actually checked myself into a mental hospital because I was having suicidal thoughts. And I never made an attempt, but I couldn't stop thinking about killing myself, which scared the crap out of me. And so I went in the hospital, came out after 7 days, you know, was in therapy already, and then they put me on some antidepressants and everything, and I was able to make it through my second year of college, but I was having like horrible panic attacks, just like terrible fucking panic attacks. And kind of ironically, one of the things that I got into in my second year was like feminist studies, you know. So like I would go past the local strip club and I would like flip it off, you know, fuck the patriarchy, you know. And I had like a shaved head. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I happen to have a picture of young Heather. So you can't really see it really well, but I have no hair in that picture. I have buzzed it all off. Okay, so I get through that year of school, and I go to Atlanta. A friend of a friend had a place that I could stay, and I go to this condo, and I'm house sitting for these Japanese people, and I start looking for a job, and it's the summer of the Olympics in Atlanta. So there's all these people, like everybody in the world has come to Atlanta to try to like cash in on the Olympics. And I go and I'm staying in this place, and I'm going out every day, and I'm like looking for bartending jobs because I had gone to bartending school and I knew what I was doing. Little did I know that there's no point in going to bartending school because they only promote people from within for bartending jobs for the most part. So I kept looking for a job, and when that didn't work, I was like, okay, I'm running out of money. I'm gonna go, you know, try to get like a fast food job. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to do something. And then it occurred to me, I was like, wait a minute, like I'm all alone in Atlanta. I'm an hour away from my family. They won't come to the city, and I have this opportunity. I can go and be sneaky, and I can go work at a strip club. I can go see what this is like. You know, I've always been fascinated by it. And so at this point, I had hair that was about that long, and I hadn't shaved my legs in 10 months. So I was like full stereotypical baby dyke college, you know, feminist, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go be a stripper. Oh my gosh. So, I didn't even have money for like a razor, right? And I found this pack of disposable razors, unopened disposable razors, but they were like straight razors. And that's what I had to use to like shave my legs for the first time in 10 months. Like that would have been ugly even if I had had like a regular razor, but this, like I cut myself so bad, like it was bad. It was just bad. So, at any rate, I go and I get the job at the strip club, and I was so fresh off the turnip truck. Like I had no idea what was going on. I was really gullible, extraordinarily book smart, but not no street smarts like whatsoever. And I just looked so fresh and innocent. And I was 20. Was I 20? Yeah, I wasn't 21 yet, and I was baby faced as hell, and people thought I was a cop. I actually got harassed on my first job at the strip club because they thought I was a cop, and so that was fun. That just tells you like how out of my element I was. And I tried this stripping, that wasn't very fun. I tried like lingerie modeling at another place, and that wasn't very fun. And I finally got up my nerve, and I was like, what I really want to try is being an escort. Like that sounds fun. That sounds wild. That's really what I want to do. And in the course of all this, I could have gone home like that summer, but my family situation had gotten worse. Like I would have been staying with my mom, and she was not doing well after the divorce of my dad, and she was bringing around really dangerous people. And so I was safer in Atlanta working in the sex industry than I was going home. So I mean, I could have gone with other family members or whatever. Now that looking back, but just at the time, I was like, this is the best thing I could do. Okay, so I started escorting, and I was like, wow, like this is so fun. Like there's no office to go to. I go to different places all night, and I make money, most of it in cash, and I get to have sex, and sometimes I even get to have orgasms, and sometimes the guys are hot, and I was like, this is pretty fucking cool. And so that's how I got into the sex industry. And it was, just before my 21st birthday. And I actually stayed in the industry until I was in my mid 30s. And during that time, I had a whole lot of fun. I really, really loved so much about it. Like I loved being my own boss. I loved being awake at night. I'm an extreme night owl. I really don't like daylight that much. And it was just an adventure. Like it was an adventure. I remembered recently somebody was saying that my method of teaching sales is almost like spying, like not spying on somebody, but it's almost like spy work, right? Because it's really like learning to listen to what people are saying and what they're not saying and all this. And a lot of this stuff, even though I downplayed, I was like, oh, well, I mean, I've sold, I sold my services when I was an escort, but I don't know anything about sales. And one of my coaches this year was like, Heather, sales is sales is sales. So, it didn't matter if you were naked or not. Like, if you learn to sell, you learn to sell. Okay. So, but yeah, this kind of like, I would have these kind of fantasies as I was like going in and out of these big hotels, and I'm like ducking and dodging security, and then I got to figure out if people are undercover cops, and all this stuff. I would kind of have like this fantasy going on in my mind. I was a spy, so I just had a lot of fun with it. Like my story and my experience in the industry is probably not typical. I'll tell you, like most of the depictions of the industry, they focus on the worst parts of it, and there are bad parts of it, but it's not all bad. At any rate, so I got lonely. Like I was sticking to myself, and just kind of I was like, I don't really need to get involved with these other like escort people because they're probably crazy. And I was right. At least the ones that I, was seeing, was being sent to see people with, and but I got lonely, And when you're in one of these fringe groups, it's you're lonely. It's hard for. I had friends from college, but it was hard for them to relate. I would tell them stories, and they thought they were amusing, but they couldn't relate to a lot of the stuff I was experiencing and going through. So I started running around with the wrong crowd, and I got into drugs and mostly marijuana, just smoking like copious amounts of pot. Like I smoked blunts, I learned to roll blunts, and then it was on and cracking after that. With my nails this long, I could, bust open a blunt and it's a cigar, like it's a cigar but with marijuana in it, for anybody who doesn't know what a blunt is. And I smoked those like all day, every day. And we ran around, we had a lot of fun, we got into crazy situations and got out of them, and for the most part, like it was just like this grand adventure. But I was assaulted by a police officer during an arrest, for no reason. Like police violence is real. It's not all of them, but some of them are assholes. And I don't know if you can kind of see, my nose is a little crooked, and it's because I was hit by a cop. And after I had a couple of bad experiences with police, I actually got into sex workers' rights, and I actually ran the Atlanta um, organization for sex workers' rights, and it was called HIRE, which stands for Hooking is Real Employment. And I actually went to speak at Emory University and Georgia State University. I spoke at Georgia State twice and Emory once, and it was really fun to just talk to these college kids and let them ask me all these questions. Like the second time I did it, people were like sneaking into the class that weren't in that class, and it was like an abnormal psych class. So they're like, yeah, let's bring the hooker in. The abnormal psych class. And so I had them rolling laughing. Like it was really, really, really funny, and it was really fun. And because of that, I actually went and learned how to do stand-up comedy, because I thought it would be really fun to be like the call girl stand-up comic. The problem is that I would go and do these open mics, and I would do my 5-minute set, and I would be talking about all this crazy shit that had happened to me at work that week. And then people would come up to me and they would be like, hey, do you want to, the other comics, the amateur comics, they'd be like, hey, we're going to go to this diner, do you want to go? And I'm like, no, I got to go to work. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, really? So I actually spoke to colleges a couple of times. I was actually paid to be a speaker at Emory University. And this all led to me being actually in a couple of national documentaries. One was for ABC. It was a John Stossel documentary. Both of these things were in the 90s, so it's kind of ancient history now. But it was called Sex, Drugs, and Consenting Adults. And they interviewed me very briefly for that. I felt like a second on that. The MTV documentary was called Sex 2K Escorts, and there were only 3 of us in it. It was me, a girl from Chicago, and a guy from Texas. And I was actually featured quite heavily in that, so that's like my claim to fame. And what's funny is this tells you like how much more people pay attention to like MTV than they do the news, because no one has ever recognized me from the several times that I was on. Like the one time I was on national ABC for the documentary, and then I was on the local news twice, not being arrested. I was being interviewed about sex workers' rights, and nobody ever recognized me for that. But the MTV thing, people recognize me from. They're like, hey, aren't you that Savannah girl? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. Okay, so a lot of fun and mayhem and mischief and everything. I'll tell you a couple of funny stories. So I went to see this guy once, and super nice guy. He was in like a nice hotel, and we're getting to know each other. Like haven't taken our clothes off. We're just talking, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I actually just I guess rescinded his vows. I don't know what the proper term for all this is, because I'm not Catholic. But the guy was like, yeah, I just left the monastery. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be fucking struck by lightning, right? And I remember I like ran to like this room had like these big floor to ceiling windows and like these big heavy curtains, and I went and I like hid in the curtains and turned out, and I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, he used to be a monk. I was like, I'm so going to hell. Another story, and I mean, I've got a fucking million of them. Another story was I went to see this guy, and he was this gorgeous guy, nice hotel. And I mean, just really, really fucking beautiful. And I go in, and there's TV scripts all over the floor for the soap opera. And I was like, are you on this? And he was like, yeah, I'm just in town, you know, to like do some promotion and like sign some autographs and everything. And he was fucking beautiful. He was so fucking beautiful. And he paid me to have sex with him. I was like, what? Oh my God. And like, in the years that I was in the industry, I actually learned, you know, that I could clean up pretty well. So if you saw the promo pic of for this live, you know, that was one of my escorting like ad photos in my 30s, right? So I did actually learn how to, you know, I cleaned up pretty good, but still, I was like, oh my God, this guy is so fucking pretty. So several years later, I was watching a movie with some friends, and I kept looking at this guy like the whole movie, and I was like, God, that guy looks familiar. Like, who is that guy? Like, who is that guy? Like, he just looks so familiar, you know? And it got to the credits, and it was my client. I was like, oh, I had your cock in my mouth. That's how I know you are. Always with a condom. Always with a condom. Always very, very, very safe sex, which is why I got out of the sex industry with a clean bill of health. Okay, so a lot of fun, a lot of mayhem, a lot of mischief. I traveled all over the country. You know, I was mostly in Atlanta, but we would go on work trips. Like you would have your friends, and we would take these crazy road trips. And you know, there's a street saying, you know, like pimps will talk about like, oh, you know, I got bitches from the pineapple to the Big Apple, and you know, they're talking about obviously New York, Big Apple, but pineapple is Hawaii. And I can say that I worked from the pineapple to the Big Apple. I'm not in every single state, but I have worked in both of those places. And I've worked in several places like all throughout the US. And it was just kind of crazy because, you know, wherever you went, you could have a job within 15 minutes, you know. I mean, if you knew how to pick up from hotel bars, you know, even sooner than that, right? So it was like the ultimate job security. And I just love the adventure. But when I got into my 30s, I had to get sober. I had developed like a daily ecstasy and marijuana habit. The marijuana habit was like for all of my 20s. The ecstasy kept getting worse, and I bottomed out on it when I was 29. And my drug habit at that point was $2,000 a month. So I had a house, had a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, and in Atlanta, and my drug habit was more expensive than my house note, right? So I went to get sober, and of course, like this whole time, like my family really hated my job, and they knew about it because I had been on TV a few times, and you know, my friends worried about me. And then when I got into recovery, some people were like, yeah, whatever, you know, go be an escort if you can do it and stay sober, whatever. And my sponsor was really cool with it, but other people were like, oh my God, you can't do that anymore, and yada yada. So I had a lot of pressure. And then the industry changed. So the more prominent the internet got, people started banding together. So I was used to working in Atlanta, which was basically like a hoe-run city, right? So what I mean by that is that the agencies were primarily owned, and even if they weren't owned by women, they were run by women. And so if there was a dispute between a client and escort, they almost invariably sided with the escort, right? But I had worked in other cities like Miami that is primarily trick run, primarily run by men, and it's a whole different ball game, right? So a lot of like pressure to be unsafe in your sex practices and all this stuff, and it was just really just gross. And these review boards came out, and they started telling the world like who would give a bareback blowjob and who would have sex without condoms, and exactly how much people charged. And I understand why they did it from the perspective of there was a lot of bullshit. You know, there were a lot of scam artists in the industry, right, who were ripping people off, which, you know, even though most people would not call being an escort any kind of an ethical profession, I was very ethical about the way I did it. Like I saw it as a way of helping people, you know, and giving people company, giving them valuable companionship and pleasure, right? And as long as people were treating me with respect, then it was all good. But these review boards I understood why they were calling out the people who were ripping people off, robbing people, all kinds of like that nonsense, using pictures that were 10 years old, and you show up like catfishing people, we call it today. I understood that, but they really made the industry go downhill. Like they really like made it more difficult to charge good rates, and it was just, and then the people wanted to argue with you about condom use, and it was gross. So it was time for me to go do something different. But by this point, I had been arrested arrested 3 times. One of those was marijuana, and I had been ticketed once. And I only had the pot conviction, and then I had a conviction that had been pled down from a prostitution charge. So I had 2 things on my record. And I hadn't finished college. And every time I tried to think about what I could do, my brain would just shut down. I would just go into like so much anxiety. And so, this went on for a couple years. I thought about going back to school, but they wanted my criminal record before they would look at letting me back into school. And I was like, oh my God, do I lie and hope this doesn't come up, or am I honest with them? And at the time, like I just freaked out and I just backed out of the process and never went back, even though I probably could have gotten at least one of my scholarships back. And so I had been in therapy this whole time, and now I was in recovery, and I had always been interested in like being a better person, being a happier and more productive person. And I was, working the recovery program, and that was clearing out more crap for me than like years of therapy. Like it really was it was so helpful because I went after it with like a single-minded purpose. It wasn't just about me getting clean and sober. It was about me wanting to have a better life, wanting to be a better person. And I went after it like fiercely. And so I was doing that, and one of the people that I went to meetings with, he was in school at Emory, and he was like, "Hey, there's this like career coach person coming to talk to one of my school groups. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Sure." And I got there. I don't think he called her a coach. I think she was like somebody from his counseling office. But when I got there, I listened to her presentation, and it turns out she was a coach. She was a career coach, and she worked part of the week from home with her private clients, and then she worked part of the week at Emory. And so I went to her and I was like, "Hey, I really need to invest in this." And that was my introduction to coaching. So I went to her house, and she had this like really cute basement office. It was really nice and comfortable and everything. And we sit down, and she's like, "Well, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, I work as an escort." And she was like, "Okay." And she like didn't even bat an eye, which was awesome. And like my thing always was like, people can't help you if they don't really know what's going on with you. So I'm like, there's no point in me going in here and trying to lie. Let me just go, be honest. So I told her, and she was like, "Okay, well, what do you like about that?" And I'm like, "Well, I like the freedom. I like, that I'm able to be up at night. I like that I feel like I'm helping people. It's something that I'm passionate about. I think sex is great. I think more people should be having more sex consensually, of course." So she really was just like I don't know what she may have thought in the back of her mind, but she was very cool about it. For anybody just joining, I'm talking about when I actually met my career coach, and that's how I got into coaching. So, we talked about, she was like, "Well, what do you love about it? What do you hate about it?" And I was kind of my own boss, but I worked for agencies, and so they did have a lot of control over me, and I fucking hated that, because they could be really great, and then they could be like total assholes. Like, old hookers are some of the most evil people you will ever meet. Probably not all of them, but like the ones that I was in contact with, I was like, "Y'all bitches are fucking evil." So, so I was like, "I don't like working with these other people, yada yada." And she gave me a personality test, and it was the Myers-Briggs test, and she said, "You can't work for a big corporation." And I don't like being told that I can't do anything. And I was like, "Well, I could if I had to." I had no aspirations to, mind you. And she was like, "No, you can't do this. It will eat your soul." And I was like, okay, that seems a little, extreme. But the more we talked, the more I was like, well, tell me more about what you do, And she's like, well, I have about 30 clients. I, work about 30 hours a week. And, I make, she was a career coach. So at the time, I think it was 150 for her kind of entry level people. And it was like 275 if you were a C level executive that she was helping. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I want your job. What was my result on that test, Karen? It was ENFP. So extroverted, intuitive, what is F? Feeling perceptor. And then later on when I took it, it was ENFJ. But yeah, she was like, you can't work for a corporation. And so we talked about it, and she's like, yeah, she was like, I could see you being a really good coach. You could help people. We talked about me being a sex coach, which I did for a little while. And she was like, yeah, you have a lot of knowledge that could help a lot of people. And I was like, okay, this sounds cool. And so she told me what school to go to, or she suggested that I go to the coaching school that she went to, and that was Coach U. And it was the first coaching school that was founded by Thomas Leonard. So really, really high quality, training. And okay, so you're very, very close. No wonder we kind of click, Karen, because you're like very, very close on the Myers-Briggs. Yeah. So, and I wonder, have you been able to work for big corporations? Were you happy doing it? Yeah. So I went to my coach training, and that is when I started diving even more into personal growth. And I was still in recovery, and I was still working that program like to the nth fucking degree, because I was like, there was a friend of mine, and I'm sure he got this from his mentor in the program, but he was like, how free do you want to be? Every time you think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, or, I don't want to dig into this work, this deep interpersonal work, how free do you want to be? And so I was always asking myself that. And it cleared out so much junk that I was actually dismissed from therapy after a couple of years. And so that is the power to me of personal growth. That is why I am so, 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 so passionate about the personal development industry, spiritual growth, everything, because it gave me a freedom, and it gave me confidence and a self-love that I don't think I would have gotten like anywhere else. Like my therapist, I credit them with keeping me alive, and I'm grateful for therapy. But if it hadn't been for personal growth, if it hadn't been for the recovery program, I might not be alive today. I certainly wouldn't be as well adjusted and as happy and as productive as I am today. You worked in a bank for 10 years and it sucked the life right out of you. Yeah. So I went to the coach training, and it was really great training, but like most life coach trainings at the time, they really don't do much around like how to sell and how to market yourself, right? And so for several years I was just like, oh my God, I just spent like $3,600 on this training, and then I had to like fly to Chicago and pay for hotels and blah 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 blah. And I was just like, I can't, I don't want to spend any more money on this. And then I got the opportunity to do sex coaching school. And I wrote to them, and I was like, hey, I've been an escort for a number of years. I'd really like to be a sex coach. And they're like, cool. And they let me in on a scholarship. So I got a little more training there, but I still wasn't getting the marketing and sales training, right? And so I've actually been coaching for about 10 years. And from the jump, like I've been a great coach like for a really long time, but I just couldn't figure out I had a lot of mindset stuff. I had a lot of self-loathing that I had to clear. Somebody else on these topics was saying that she wanted to hear something about how to overcome I don't think she called it self-loathing. I call it self-loathing. But yeah, I called it my ball of self-loathing, my seething ball of self-hatred that I kind of discovered the more work I did. And I was like, how the fuck is this still there? But just pouring myself into personal growth, and learning the ins and outs of it as a life coach was really fascinating. Learning the sex coaching side of things was really fascinating, but I didn't know how to sell. And then I started taking courses and like business courses, and I just didn't like the way I was being taught to sell and market. It just didn't feel right to me, didn't feel good to me. And it wasn't until this year that I finally got some one-to-one coaches, and I figured out the whole sales and marketing thing. And I never intended to be a business coach. I was always kind of like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be the coach that actually gets this work out into the world, not just coaching other coaches. I'm like, it's like, But by the time I, got 9 years into it and like $14,000 of business investments at that point, and I'm now up to 20 and just courses. I was kind of an expert on marketing and sales. And I realized that I had to create my own way of marketing and selling that felt good because not that I'm a perfect person, not that I'm a saint, far from it, but I have a very, very guilty conscience. So if I tell, like, even sometimes like the whitest lie, like my conscience will fuck with me for like 24 hours about this shit. And I'll have to go and like admit to somebody that I told like the dumbest lie. And so I just choose not to do it. It's not like a self-righteous thing. When I say ethical sales, it's not like you must be ethical. It's just like, oh my gosh, and I know I'm not the only person out there, who's really interested in serving people, and they want to do a great job, but they're just not willing to like sell their soul in the process. They're not willing to push people, bully people, manipulate people, use a bunch of hype, to get clients. And I realized that that would be my purpose, at least for now. And so that's what I've been doing this year. And I realized that as much as I want to have an impact on the world outside of coaching, because it's great that we're all doing this stuff, but the whole world really needs us. We don't need, I call it the circle jerk gangbang of personal development, where it's just coaches coaching coaches who coach other coaches, or healers healing healers who heal other healers. And it's great that we're all doing this. And I understand we're like the front runners of consciousness, and so it makes sense that, the rest of the world, it doesn't quite get us, and we get us, and we're just like, oh my God, let's just stick together, and it's easier to market to you because you're a coach or a healer and you get it, right? But I really want to see us moving out and really getting out past our boundaries in our little personal development bubble to really make an impact on the world, because I think we're needed now more than ever. And so I didn't like the idea of being a coach who coached other coaches, but now I'm like, okay, if I can help these people who are super high integrity, who are really in this to do great things, and they're not willing to sacrifice their integrity to do it, those are the people I want to call my colleagues. Those are the people that I want to be like, yep, she's a coach, he's a coach, that's a healer. I want high integrity people, because the industry has got kind of a shit reputation, because there is so much shenanigans and bullshit that goes on. There are a lot of people out there that are doing, good things, and they're doing it with integrity, but there's a lot of shenanigans going on, right? And so I realized that the people that were in that same place as I was, where they really wanted to get their stuff out, but they just didn't feel good about all the ways, they had been taught to sell and market. And I mean, at the point that you've taken 3 big group courses and they're all telling you kind of the same thing, and none of it is aligned with you, it starts to feel kind of hopeless. So I was like, well, let me get out here and see if I can help people. And I have been able to help people, and it's been really exciting. I've had three one-to-one coaching clients, and I've put out this year, and I've put out a masterclass that I sold 4 spots in, and I have a mini course that I'm now marketing for Black Friday. That's amazing. And I finally picked up this momentum, and that's another thing that I'm really passionate about, is normalizing what the path to being successful really looks like, because so much of what we see is like these overnight success stories, or I've heard people, oh my God, it took me 3 months to get my first client. And I want to be like, shut the fuck up. Like, I did have clients before this year, but never like anything consistently. There was a while when I was doing sex coaching that I was doing a lot of workshops where I was teaching people about pleasurable, safer sex, from all the stuff I learned while I was escorting, and a lot about sexual communication and how to have better sex and everything. And that was really fun, but I wasn't charging enough for it. I wasn't charging enough. You love what? Yay! I'm glad. What do you love? But yeah, it was something that was great, but it was a lot of work, and I wasn't getting enough money for it, and I wasn't converting people into one-to-one clients. And so now I'm actually looking at how I can incorporate, and start like keep the business coaching, because now I am actually passionate about that, but how I can start doing more of the adult sex positive sex education again, because it was really, really fun. I was really, really passionate about it. And I know that I can market it now because now I have learned slash creative slash tweaked things so that I know how to market and sell myself without feeling like I'm selling my soul. I can overcome objections without being an asshole. I can market without being hypey or being full of shit. Yeah. So that is how I went from being a nerdy tomboy to a call girl, to a coach, and then a sex coach, and now a business coach, and how I might be going back to sex coaching, at least to some degree. So thank you, Karen, so much for watching. Thanks for anybody else who watches on the replay. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, put them in the comments. And I'm going to be going live for the next 30 days. There's a post where I have like 8 different options. I've done 2 of them so far. Okay, I know how it is. She's like, I love what you were saying about it, but something, but now it escaped my mind. I get it. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helped you to get to know me a little bit better. My coach is having me, the fabulous Amanda Rose is having me go live for 30 days, and she's insisting that I not only deliver valuable content, but that I get raw and I'll let you guys get to know me and just bleh. So anyway, I hope this is entertaining, and I look forward to talking to you more tomorrow. Bye. Oh, check out my Black Friday sale. There's seriously it's a mini training. It's a mini course. It's called the One Document to Rule Them All. And it's basically a 7-part training with 2 bonus trainings that help you to get really, really clear on all the stuff you need to create fantastic content and offers, to talk about things in a way that none of your other competitors are talking about, to really, really, really stand out to your ideal clients and know what they need, know what they think they need, know why it is that if they say they can't afford to work with you, this document will help you to this training will help you know why they can't afford not to work with you. So it's going to help you with objections, with your confidence, with your copywriting. It's going to help you sell more. It is good stuff. And for Black Friday, it's 90% off. It's only $47. So I'll pop the link for that down here. You can let me know if you have questions. If you're not in my Facebook group is Ethical High Ticket Sales for Coaches and Healers. And there's actually a preview of that training in there. So if you join and just let me know you want to look at the preview of the training, I'll tag you in it so that you can see it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Oh, and for those in the U.S., happy Thanksgiving tomorrow.